All right, guys, welcome back to the Liz Wheeler Show. Ron DeSantis officially announces that he is running for president. It was a monumental announcement that we all knew was coming. Let's be real. We all knew that Ron DeSantis was going to run for president. It was just a matter of when he was going to announce and how he was going to announce and with whom he was going to announce. And of course, he chose to do it on Twitter with Elon Musk, which I thought was really cool. I thought was a really good idea. Now, this is what I thought before it actually happened, before the tech issues, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I thought it was really cool because of my very strong feelings about the media landscape, my very strong feelings that cable news is not just a dying industry, but its death has become accelerated since the firing of Tucker Carlson. We are now seeing the beginning of the end of cable news and the future of media, of course. It's not that conservative media is going to disappear. It's that conservative media, the future of conservative media is right here. The future of conservative media is new media. The future of conservative media is independent journalists, independent creators offering you in the marketplace their goods and services. We are the future of media. And so I was excited to see DeSantis pick Twitter because this is really cool. A beacon of free speech, not cable news. But then, of course, we tuned into this space, this Twitter space. And by the way, thank you for everyone who joined us. We had a watch party, a live stream on the Liz Wheeler Show community on Locals, and it was super fun hanging out with you. We ended up hanging out for 2 solid hours, the first half an hour of which was just technical issues on the part of Twitter. Elon Musk and DeSantis. And I got to tell you, as someone who works in broadcast, I mean, you work with technology, you have tech issues, right? Like, it doesn't matter how professional you are, how premier your equipment is, this just happens. It's like operating your computer. You can do the same thing every day and logging into your email, and then one day you're just like, what is going on with this thing? It locks you out. That's how it is working with technology. So I was kind of amused at first when they had all these technology issues, just because it's kind of nice to know that it happens to other people. But then, of course, you start feeling, I started feeling sympathy for them, almost sympathy pains. You know how sometimes husbands, when wives are in labor, they get like abdominal pain, like similar to contractions, just out of sympathy for their wives? I started feeling like sympathy pains for Ron DeSantis's communications team, because this is just your worst nightmare. It turned out okay. Of course, they ended up switching which Twitter account was hosting the space. We all saw it. That's fine. Still, this is going to be the primary thing that the left attacks DeSantis for, because it gave the left the perfect excuse not to focus on what DeSantis actually said in his opening statements, what he said during the question and answer, which was really interesting. I enjoyed listening to it. There were 3 things that I pulled out of this entire 2-hour broadcast that I think are the 3 most crucial things that Ron DeSantis said or spoke about. So I want to talk about that tonight. I also want to answer a question that it's a very valid question that you guys throw at me all the time. And I promise I'm not trying to be coy. I'm not trying to, tiptoe around the question of, do I like Trump better? Do I like DeSantis better? Who am I going to support in the primary? I haven't answered this directly for a very specific reason. And so I want to walk you through my thought process. And I also want to hear your guys' opinions too. If you know who you're going to vote for already, I want to hear who and I want to hear why. But I want to share with you my thoughts on this. Also, we're going to talk about Target. Huge update on the Target story. Target announced that they are pulling many of their Pride displays, the Pride merchandise. They're pulling from their stores. They're pulling from their website, which at first glance might seem like a victory, but do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. This is actually not a victory for conservatives. It's close, it's almost, but if we stop the pressure now, then we will actually lose this fight, because Target has not apologized. And in fact, they are blaming us, accusing us of being violent extremists, terrorists, and bigots for the reason that they're pulling us off their website. So we're gonna have a little conversation about what the proper course of action for us as conservatives is in the wake of Target pulling these items. And we also have one more update on the LA Dodgers. Remember, we talked earlier in the week about how the LA Dodgers are honoring this grotesque, sacrilegious group of transgender strippers who dress up as versions of Catholic nuns. It's so grotesque. They're so irreverent. There's an update on this story. It's actually a heartening reminder of the very serious battle between good and evil that we're fighting, but that we have not been abandoned by the good side. So without further ado, let's get to it. Guys, you have to get 4 Patriots because China already screwed us over once with COVID. I don't want it to happen again. The Chinese Communist Party right now is doing something really shady. They're hoarding massive amounts of food. I'm talking over 2/3 of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. That's really weird, right? Why are they doing this? If you ask China that question, they just lie. I'll tell you the reason why, though. The reason why is because China thinks we're on the verge of a global food shortage, and China, being the world's #1 food importer, relies on the rest of the world to keep their people fed. So they can't afford to mess up, or they're going to face riots, civil panic, maybe even worse, when their people, over 1 billion people, can't eat. So what does this mean for us? How is this going to impact you and me? 2 words. Food shortages. These global food shortages that China is anticipating and preparing for, they will negatively impact the United States. That's why you must stock up on 4 Patriots survival food so you are prepared. I highly recommend you begin your own stockpile of 4 Patriots survival food kits. The kits are compact, they stack easily, they have different breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food by typing promo code Liz at checkout. Just go to 4patriots.com. Use promo code Liz to get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food. That's 4patriots.com, promo code Liz. Okay, we're going to talk about the DeSantis thing in a minute. We're going to talk about who's better, DeSantis or Trump, who we're voting for, why, who we're supporting, who we're opposing, and what we should make of a couple of critical things that DeSantis said. 3 things I actually picked out that I think are the most important things that DeSantis said. But before that, I want to show you just a little sneak peek of an interview that I'm so excited about. I did an interview this week with Chadwick Moore. Maybe you know who this is, maybe you don't. He's writing the definitive biography on Tucker Carlson. It's coming out in July, and I sat down with him, talked to him for a long time this week. Fascinating guy, hilarious guy, but also he has insider information from Fox News about why Tucker Carlson was fired. Take a look at this.
Dominion, of course, has denied this, and since then, Fox News has denied this. Dominion's denial has interesting wording that has led many people to speculate that it is almost confirms that this is true. But they have denied it, and my sources are I have no reason not to believe that this is the case. So we went out with it that we felt that it was important that this might not be in the news by July, and people should know this because I think has huge ramifications for our democracy and for our First Amendment and what kind of a country we want to be.
And that's just a tiny sneak peek of it. The whole interview, you'll be riveted. It's coming out on Friday. So make sure you drop me your email address at lizwheeler.com so we can notify you the second it drops. You're going to love it. You really are. It's one of the best ones that we've ever done. Lizwheeler.com. Drop me your email address. Okay. So the DeSantis announcement, I was excited. They were doing it on Twitter. Obviously, it was pretty awkward when they had all those tech issues, and the left is certainly going to use that as their primary line of attack. Like, oh, you can't even roll out your presidential campaign. How incompetent of you. And here's what I'll say in response to that. I'd say the exact same thing if it happened to a Democrat. Let's be honest. Of course we would make fun of a Democrat if this happened to a Democrat. So it's whatever. It happened. There were still so many people that signed on to the stream that they changed to when the first stream broke Twitter servers, which is kind of something if you think about it. It's kind of something that there were so many people interested in what DeSantis was going to say in his announcement that it actually broke one of the biggest social media platforms in the country. It broke the servers. It couldn't handle that amount of traffic. That's pretty cool. When it comes to what DeSantis is offering versus what Trump is offering, now the race is real, right? It's only been hypothetical or an anticipated race up until now. We all kind of knew that Ron DeSantis was running. We just didn't know when. He's been pretty coy about it. He said, I'm not even really in the race. I'm not a real candidate. Whenever anyone brings up the polls showing Trump being ahead of him, well, now it's real. Now he's running against Donald Trump. So all these attacks that Donald Trump has been levying at Ron DeSantis, now we're going to see how Ron DeSantis is going to respond. But his opening statement, his pitch to the American people saying, listen, I'm running for president. I want your vote. And here's why. It was quite something. Take a listen to this.
Well, I am running for president of the United States to lead our great American comeback. Look, we know our country's going in the wrong direction. We see it with our eyes and we feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country. Our cities are being hollowed out by spiking crime. The federal government's making it harder for the average family to make ends meet and to attain and maintain a middle-class lifestyle. And our president, well, he lacks vigor, flounders in the face of our nation's challenges, and he takes his cues from the woke mob. I don't think it has to be this way. American decline is not inevitable. It is a choice. And we should choose a new direction, a path that will lead to American revitalization. We must restore sanity to our nation. This means embracing fiscal and economic sanity. Stop pricing hardworking Americans out of a good standard of living through inflationary borrow, print, and spending policies. And please embrace American energy independence. This also means replacing the woke mind virus with reality, facts, and enduring principles. Merit must trump identity politics. We must return normalcy to our communities. America's a sovereign country. Our borders must be respected. We cannot have foreigners pouring into our country illegally by the millions. We cannot allow drug cartels to poison our population with fentanyl. Public deserves safe communities, and law and order must be maintained in American cities. We can't have inmates running the asylum, and we must reject attacks on the men and women of law enforcement. We also must reestablish integrity in our institutions. This includes the military. I'm proud to be a Navy veteran, an Iraq veteran, and I revere our services. But when revered institutions like those in our military are more concerned with matters not central to the mission, whether it's global warming or gender ideology and pronouns, morale declines and recruiting suffers. And you need to eliminate these distractions, and we need to get focused on the core mission. We also cannot have true constitutional government if the most significant issues are decided by the whims of unelected bureaucrats rather than the people's elected representatives. Reestablishing integrity in our institutions means we must reinvigorate our constitutional system by returning the government to its rightful owners, we the people. No social or economic transformation without representation. Truth needs to be our foundation. Common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. And in Florida, we proved it could be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line.
I mean, that's pretty good, right? It's pretty good. I know the criticism from even some people on the right was that it was very scripted. It wasn't off the cuff. And here's what I will say. There is a little bit of an incongruency when you're on a Twitter space, because a Twitter space is supposed to be like a bunch of people just sitting around talking. It's a very casual setting. That being said, a presidential announcement, when you're announcing that you're running for president, actually shouldn't be a casual announcement. It should be something that you've put a lot of time and a lot of thought and a lot of effort and preparation into preparing exactly what you want to offer to the American people. So again, you can criticize the nuances of how the announcement went, but my biggest criticism with it was that there was no video. That's something I just couldn't get past. I mean, if we think about 2015, for example, when President Trump came down that elevator and announced that he was running for president, what is it that we all think in our mind's eye? We can all bring up this picture in our mind at a moment's notice. We see Melania coming down the elevator. We see Trump coming down the elevator. A lot of us probably can't even remember what Trump actually said. What did he say? What did the podium look like? No, we remember his entrance on that elevator. Images are very powerful in our society. We are an image-driven society right now. We're certainly not a society driven by ideas. And so it kind of blew my mind that the DeSantis team didn't have any video accompanying this. Like, for goodness sake, send a video crew. Send some camera people, send some text. Make this a production where when people are sharing all of this information, when we're analyzing and discussing it, we can actually put it on camera. I think that would have been a more effective strategy, but it's easy to sit here and criticize, right? Which is what we love to do. That's exactly what we're here for. So that was my biggest criticism, but just noting that the left is going to obviously criticize the tech issues and that people on the right are criticizing him being scripted. I don't think either of those criticisms matter, but if I were opposing a candidate, I would make the same criticisms. But the reason for that is because they don't want to talk about his ideas. Now, 3 things that he mentioned, I mean, everything that he listed in that opening statement was just beautiful. You can actually, by the way, if you didn't get a chance to watch the whole Twitter Spaces, if you didn't get a chance to listen to his entire statement plus all the question and answer, we posted the entire thing uncensored on lizwheeler.com. So you can go over there and you can listen to it. I wouldn't say watch it, but you can listen to it because it's on audio. The uncensored version is up on lizwheeler.com. But the 3 most critical things that were discussed, I want to show you the audio of those 3 things. I'm probably going to say video. a couple of times because I'm so used to that, but it's not. It's just audio. We're going to get to those audio clips in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about American Hartford Gold. I don't mean to sound all doom and gloom here, but I do feel like we're on the brink of a massive financial crisis. So maybe that is doom and gloom in and of itself. First, we had Silicon Valley Bank collapse, and then Signature Bank collapse, and then First Republic Bank collapse. And all the while, our Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, actually admitted that the FDIC and the Fed are going to pick and choose which banks to rescue, and I guess which banks not to rescue, based basically on wokeness. So I have to question, is our money actually safe? And I'll be honest and tell you, I don't feel confident that it is. That's why I highly recommend you do what I did. Call the only precious metals dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple and easy to protect your savings, your money, your retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. If you call them right now, they'll give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Again, the phone number is 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Okay, the three most important, crucial things that were said during this entire almost 2-hour Twitter space. I guess technically it was just over an hour, but including the tech issues. The first was not even something that Ron DeSantis said. It was actually something that Elon Musk said. Nonetheless, this was one of the most important things that was covered in this Twitter space. You can take a listen right now.
So Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless.
Twitter was indeed expensive, says Elon Musk, but free speech is priceless. The reason I think this is so important is because Elon Musk obviously just appointed or hired a new CEO, Linda Yaccarino, to run Twitter. And she's like everything that we would not hire, everything we do not want in a CEO for Twitter. She buys into ESG. She's woke. She doesn't believe in free speech. She thinks that advertisers should have the heckler's veto over what you and I are allowed to say about controversial topics. I don't like her at all, and I think it's a very bad pick for Elon Musk. So it is reassuring to hear him say, yes, Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless, because maybe he'll realize that his pick for CEO is not good, and certainly hold her accountable if she wants to implement any policies, known or unknown to him, that would restrict our free speech. So I think that's extremely critical. I know it's not necessarily related to Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign, but it is good to hear. It is good to hear. But Ron DeSantis, two of the most important things, or the two things that I think are the most important that Ron DeSantis said, is first, he rejected the idea that there should be some sort of amnesty when it comes to any and all politicians of both parties and how they behaved during COVID-19. Not their personal behavior. I don't care if they're triple masked, if they want to be, whatever. It's a loser thing to do, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the policies that they imposed on us, the lockdowns, businesses being closed, children not being allowed to go to school, forced masks, vaccine mandates that cost people their job. And Ron DeSantis rejected the idea that politicians and public health officials who called for those policies, who implemented those policies, that it should just be bygones be bygones. No, Ron DeSantis said there needs to be an honest reckoning about what happened. Take a listen.
Well, first, we need an honest reckoning about what happened during COVID. And the only honest reckoning is that all of those agencies, all of the elites, the public health establishment, they failed. They instituted bad policies. Obviously, it's a novel virus, but I think what happened was when the data was becoming more and more apparent that the path they were on was wrong, they doubled down and wanted to do it even more. And I really believe had Florida not just kind of stood in the way, I think this country would have had rolling lockdowns for probably a 2-year period. And so their impulses were authoritarian. They were not following the data. And I think the U.S. government needs to acknowledge the failures. And I think all of those agencies need to be cleaned out. What I saw just dealing with them was I saw a interest in the narrative and in politics over evidence-based reasoning and evidence-based medicine. And so I don't have confidence that those agencies are up to the task. And I think you need major overhaul of the whole enchilada with respect to public health in this country.
It's like music to my ears. Like, if there's one argument that I'm not a single issue voter, I'm really not. I'm not a single issue voter, even though I feel strongly about so many different things. But if there's one argument that we are not hearing from very many politicians, really any politicians who are in executive positions of power, it's that argument. And it's that argument that we must demand from our Republican candidates. I'm not sure I could have articulated it any better than Ron DeSantis did. He talked about them being authoritarian. He talked about them rejecting the evidence. And he understands exactly what Florida did, not just bucking the trend, but actually protecting the entire country from further lockdowns. If it hadn't been for Florida, there wouldn't have been. Florida was a bulwark against Fauci locking down our whole country. That's perhaps the single most important thing that Ron DeSantis said. The second most important thing that he said is a question that you and I talk about so often. We talk about draining the swamp. We talk about bureaucrats in the federal government who rule our lives, even though they're unelectable and unfireable, so unaccountable to us. We talk about the administrative state. We all want to abolish the administrative state. That is something a lot of conservatives agree on. The question is, how is this done? Right? You can't just go in and think you can play whack-a-mole with bureaucrats like Fauci and then Birx and then James Comey. You can't just fire individuals when the entire administrative state is staffed with these bureaucrats, and our legislature has delegated, and I should put that in quotation marks, delegated their legislative authority to these administrative agencies, and the judicial branch is practicing this deference to administrative agencies where they just accept the so-called experts in the agency's word over the voice of the people as represented in the legislature by their representatives, right? Ron DeSantis went right to the root of this. And if you guys, some of you watching this show, some of you VIPs, some of you true blues here are going to recognize this topic of conversation, because we've talked about this before a long time ago, and we've talked about this on the Liz Wheeler Show community, on Locals, in the VIP section. We've talked about Chevron deference. Maybe you don't know this phrase, maybe you've never heard of it, maybe you know exactly what it is, but Chevron deference is a Supreme Court jurisprudence where the courts defer to the administrative agencies and these experts, and they just say, oh, it's because of Chevron. It's because of Chevron. And they don't actually re-examine whether this is constitutionally sound. Ron DeSantis went right to the root of this and says that we're getting rid of. Listen to this.
Chevron deference really curtailed or maybe even eliminated based on the U.S. Supreme Court's upcoming jurisprudence. And I think that's another reason why the bureaucracy has become so powerful, because courts have basically been told they can pretty much do what they want, and courts are supposed to just defer. I don't think that that's actually correct. I think the courts, they have to make a judgment about what does the law actually say, and you can't just defer to quote unquote experts in the bureaucracy.
Again, I know a lot of politicians who talk about draining the swamp. And I'm not trying to take a veiled shot at Trump, right? I'm not on either team here. I'm an undecided Republican primary voter, if you will. But there are a lot of people that talk about draining the swamp. There are not a lot of people who have an articulated playbook for exactly how they're going to do that. I loved hearing that from Ron DeSantis. Now, going back to what I said before, the left is going to attack. I said the left is going to attack Ron DeSantis, not based on anything that he said, but just based on the tech issues. And Biden tweeted during Biden did not tweet, let's be real. I'm sure he doesn't know how to operate Twitter. Joe Biden's staff tweeted from Joe Biden's Twitter account during this Twitter space. Can we bring that up on the screen? This is a pretty funny tweet. It's element number 5. It actually is funny. I don't think that Biden's funny. I don't think Kamala's funny. I think they're incredibly destructive Marxists. But they posted, donate to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And Joe Biden's caption was, this link works. As opposed, of course, to the Twitter spaces that was crashing. That's his response. Obviously, they're responding not to anything that DeSantis said because they're scared to address it, because people support those kind of policies. Border security, people support. School choice, people support. Anti-critical race theory, anti-queer theory, people support. Using the power of the government to order society, to order liberty, people support. Joe Biden can't oppose that or else voters are going to reject him. President Trump also responded. This is my favorite tweet. He posted a bunch over on Truth Social, but this is, I think, I have no idea where this one came from. And I've read this about 12 times since he posted this during the Twitter Spaces. I still can't fully figure out what it means, but let's read this together. This is element number 6. He said, Rob, quote unquote, I guess he's calling Ron DeSantis Rob now. Rob, my red button is bigger, better, stronger, and is working. Truth, like Truth Social, yours does not. Per my conversation with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, soon to become my friend. So let's parse this. Let's try to break this down. This is what I've been trying to do. I've tried to breaking it into small pieces, almost like you would a big word that you didn't know what it meant. Actually, can we bring that back up on the screen for a second? Because I want to read that as we look at it. So Rob, I don't know if this is like a junior high tactic of intentionally using someone's or an incorrect name for someone to try to get under their skin. This is the first I've heard of this new name. I don't think it's going to be an effective one. My red button is bigger, better, stronger, and is working. So he's saying that Truth Social works while Twitter doesn't. Well, be that as it may, the Twitter space broke, but like Twitter has so many people and Truth Social, I don't think the numbers are comparable. And of course, he's explaining his joke when he said, per my conversation with Kim Jong-un, because I think Donald Trump told Kim Jong-un that my red button to launch the nukes is bigger, better, and stronger than Kim Jong-un. So don't explain your joke. Don't explain your joke. It's kind of a nutty tweet. It's kind of a nutty tweet from Trump. Sort of funny if you read it like 20 times, but not the kind of thing that's going to convince anybody to vote for Trump over DeSantis. I don't think any of Trump's responses tonight would do that. Maybe it would have been better just to kind of stay in the wings, let DeSantis make his announcement, and then roll out your defenses. But that is obviously not Trump's style, for better or for worse. So now I want to talk about, just for a second, this question. People throw it at me all the time. It's a valid question. And I don't mean to be coy. When people are like, do you like Trump or do you like DeSantis? Whose team are you on? And I've never really said, but it's not because I'm trying to withhold information. It's not because I'm waiting. Some people said, oh, you're just waiting until you see which one is going to win the primary so you can jump on that team. Utterly untrue. I'm on nobody's team. I'm here to criticize everyone and support whomever the Republican candidate is. It wouldn't be fun if I was on somebody's team, right? How could you actually criticize someone if you're on their team? You can't. It's not the same. So I'm on nobody's team so that we can be perfectly honest, perfectly savage in our criticism of everyone. And I haven't decided yet. I haven't decided. I truly have not decided who I'm going to cast my ballot for. But I will tell you some of the things that worry me about Trump and some of the things that worry me about DeSantis, because I do like to look at politicians through the negative lens. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about bank on yourself. You and I have been brainwashed into believing that the only way to grow our money for retirement is to risk it in the stock market. But this is not true. It's fake news. You actually can reach your financial goals and dreams without taking any unnecessary risks. For example, do you really control your retirement money? If you've got a 401k or an IRA or a similar retirement plan, the government actually controls it. You don't. They decide how much you can borrow and when you must pay it back, and you'll owe taxes and penalties for taking money out too soon or waiting too long, even though it's your money. And thanks to our skyrocketing national debt and a Congress that continues to spend like a drunken sailor, who knows how much you'll have to pay in taxes during a retirement that could last 30 years. Bank on yourself is a better way to grow and protect your hard-earned money. This retirement plan alternative has never had a losing year in over 160 years. You are in control. You get access to your money for any purpose with no questions asked and without government penalties or restrictions on how much income you can take or when you can take it. Try doing that with a 401k or IRA. You can't. Bank on yourself is just a better way. Now you can get a free report with all the details on how the Bank on Yourself strategy adds guarantees, predictability, tax savings, and control to your financial plan. Just go to bankonyourself.com/Liz. That's bankonyourself.com/Liz. Okay. So the way that I like to look at politicians is I like to look at them and ask the question, how could they mess up? Or where are they going to go wrong? In what way are they deficient? I like to be very, very hard on politicians because I don't trust them. I think they're either shady, power hungry, or maybe seeking profit, or just plain old incompetent. I have a very negative view on most, if not all, politicians, and I highly advocate that you all share this view. I think it's the proper view for politicians. We should be very skeptical and distrustful of our politicians. It's really the only way to hold them accountable, because if we become too supportive, then we think of politicians as a friend. We think of politicians as someone on our team, and we think of them in too protective of a way, so it blinds us to holding them accountable. Because in order to hold someone accountable, you have to be able to criticize them. And I understand that we do have to be cautious about our criticism when it comes to how unfair the mainstream media and the radical left are. We don't want to give ammunition, unnecessary ammunition, to the radical left, to the mainstream media. And so because of that, oftentimes, I think conservatives hold back on their criticism of our own politicians because we either want to put them on a pedestal or we think of them as family, as our champion, and just don't want to criticize them. We've sort of brainwashed ourselves into believing that they are the one that's come to save us. Maybe this is a commentary on our society's godlessness, on our shift away from an actual savior to now we look for a politician. Maybe it's just our protective instinct because the mainstream media is so unfair to politicians. We don't want to give them ammunition. Regardless, we have to criticize these people. And we should look at them through the lens of skepticism. It's how I analyze politicians. And let me tell you, when it comes to President Trump, I think he was a good president for 3 years. I think he was not a good president for the 4th year. And the reason is because of COVID. The reason is because he forced this vaccine. And he still stands by it, by the way. He hasn't even admitted that it's not a good idea. He was a proponent of masking. He encouraged lockdowns and actually tried to publicly shame Georgia when they tried to open up. He elevated Fauci and Birx with his White House task force, COVID task force. And on the last day in office, he actually gave a medal to Dr. Fauci. This not just bothers me. This is so troubling. This is something that's so problematic that I don't think we can just leave this in our rearview mirror. If we don't leave it in the rearview mirror with Democrats, why should we with Republicans? We're not Republican because they're our family. We vote for Republican politicians because they're supposed to advance our principles. They're supposed to protect our country, right? If a Republican politician fails, why on earth should we give them the benefit of the doubt? It's just a politician. So for that reason, I'm skeptical of Donald Trump. Again, I think he was a very good president. And as you know, you probably listened to me during his 4 years of presidency, during the 4 years of his presidency. And I often defended him because the attacks from the mainstream media were false. They were ridiculous. The weaponization of the federal government against him was unjust and unreal, honestly. But when we're analyzing whether we should vote for him again, those issues have to be addressed. On the flip side, Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis would come into office if he were president at a very significant moment, not just for our country, but for the globe. We are on the verge of a total reorganization of the world order, where the American superpower is about to be unseated. We are about to lose our status as the most powerful nation in the world because, not only because, but primarily because of the Ukraine and Russia war, right? With this enormous amount of spending, all of our money being sent over there, the devaluation of the US dollar, these other countries, the BRICS countries, but also others who are creating this currency alternative. The US dollar is the reason that we are the world superpower. It's not because of the strength of our military. We are the world superpower because of our economic strength. And if you take away America's economic strength, meaning if the US dollar is so devalued that the world doesn't need it, they turn towards another currency, then we are no longer going to be the most powerful country in the world. Some other nation, like China, will be, or Russia, or God forbid, a Chinese-Russian alliance, which is perhaps what's in the works right now with these different meetings between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. My skepticism with Ron DeSantis is not that he's soft on Vladimir Putin. It's not that he's soft on the Ukraine war. My skepticism is, does he have what it takes to end that war? Does he have the foreign policy philosophy and the ability to put that into practice to end that war? For example, when Donald Trump says, my first day in office, that war ends, I believe him. I have confidence in him. I know that will happen. But is that the case with Ron DeSantis? Does he have enough foreign policy experience? Because as a state chief executive, you're not dealing necessarily with foreign policy issues the same way you are as president, or the same way you are if you're in the federal government. Does he have the experience to negotiate the end to that, to demand the end to that in a way that preserves the American superpower, right? So I'm looking at these two men, not what I like about them. There are many things to like about both of them, right? There are many things that they've achieved. President Trump during his presidency, Ron DeSantis during his tenure as governor of Florida, that are to be respected, that have made this country and the state and the country through the states a better place. That's not how I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this, what are their weaknesses? What are their vulnerabilities? And the reason that I'm doing that is because that's what the left looks for. The left looks for their vulnerabilities. Where can we exploit them? Where is their weakness so that we can try to stymie their entire agenda by using that weakness against them? That's what happened with Trump during COVID, right? So this is why I'm an undecided voter. I'm not trying to be coy. I'm not trying to sidestep around this. I certainly will tell you honestly when I decide who I'm going to vote for, whenever that may be. I mean, I'm interested in this playing out before my very eyes. I'm interested in your take. I want to know, are you for Trump? Are you for DeSantis? Do you not know yet? What are you looking for? What questions do you need answered? But that's where I am. It's a valid question that you guys have been asking me, and I'm not trying to withhold any information from you. I need my skepticism on both accounts. I need that addressed before I can properly make that decision. Fortunately, we're about a year out before we have to make that kind of decision. So we will have to wait and see. Quick update on the Target situation. So we've been talking about Target a lot lately because this is a pivotal moment in our country. Target's pride displays aimed at queering children, aimed at grooming children, require us to boycott them. A company in the United States that aims queer theory at children the way that Target has aimed queer theory at children cannot be allowed to exist in the US marketplace. It's up to us as consumers to send that message. I said this earlier in the week, and I've been reflecting a lot about this. So often you and I feel that our voices aren't heard. We fear that our votes have been diminished. We feel that the systems have been rigged against us. And we are in such a moment where all of a sudden you and I have become the most powerful entities in this particular battle of the culture war. And it's not only a good feeling, it's something that we should take full advantage of. We should not let this moment go. And here's what I mean. So if we can bring this up on the screen, I want to show you, Target announced that they have pulled many of their Pride merchandise off the shelves. In fact, the Satanist that we talked about early in the week, the Apra Allen, the guy from Britain who is a Satanist making t-shirts like Satan loves pronouns, et cetera, they've pulled this off the website. You can see this. You search for that brand name on the website and it's gone. It's completely gone. Many Target stores have also moved their Pride display from being displayed so prominently in the front of the store to the back of the store. And Target actually issued a statement. By the way, if you haven't been following this, some of the merchandise, the Pride merchandise, are like sweatshirts that say cure transphobia, and a children's book called Bye Bye Binary, and a bathing suit that advertises that it is tucking friendly, meaning a biological male with male genitalia can fit into a female bathing suit because there's extra space for his genitalia. Disgusting, I know. Sorry to be graphic, sorry to be grotesque, but that is what Target is selling to young people, in addition to this Satan-designed merchandise. So Target, all across the country now, it's not just some of the southern stores, all across the country, they are pulling back on some of this merchandise. And at first glance, you might think, oh, we won. This is a good thing. But no. Let me warn you, Target is playing the long game here. There's something much worse going on. This is their statement. They said, since introducing this year's collection, we've experienced threats impacting our team members' sense of safety and well-being while at work. Given these volatile circumstances, we are making adjustments to our plans, including removing items that have been at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior. Our focus now is on moving forward with our continuing commitment to the LGBTQIA+ community and standing with them as we celebrate Pride Month and throughout the year. End quote. So understand exactly what this is. Target is not apologizing. Target does not think that they did anything wrong. Target is blaming you. Target says that you're violent. Target says that you're confrontational. Target says that you are a threat to the safety and well-being of their employees. Now, this is false. We've seen no evidence whatsoever that this is true. In fact, this is a really funny tweet that I think encapsulates exactly the point that I want to make. So I just want to read it directly to you. This is from Justin Hart. He said, my wife is spot on. The left can burn cities to the ground and it's mostly peaceful protests, but moms decide to shop less at Target and it's a threat. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. A couple of customers throwing a product on the ground to film it is not confrontational behavior that threatens someone's safety and well-being. Target is playing the long game here. This is a very insidious strategy, a very dangerous strategy, because it plays into the left's hate speech agenda. We've seen this even at the upper echelons of our government, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, for example, where they have labeled, first they labeled our views on COVID and the COVID vaccine and masking. They labeled that as dangerous, right? They said that that can cause actual harm, so it must be censored. They've said that if we fly a flag, a Betsy Ross flag or a Don't Tread on Me flag, that might make us militia violent extremists, that parents who run for school board are domestic terrorists. This larger hate speech strategy of the left is constructed in a way that identifies our values and labels them not as words, not as speech, but as actual violence, as actual physical danger, and therefore that gives justification to government entities to censor us under the guise of keeping people safe, ensuring security. This is what Target is doing. This is what Target is doing. They're backing off because they're afraid. They're freaking out. The executives at Target are freaking out that they're going to experience a Bud Light boycott. And let me tell you, what Bud Light did was bad. They deserve to be boycotted. What Target is doing is 100 million times worse. They should be boycotted into obscurity, because it's not an isolated incident. This is a pattern of ideologically committed behavior from Target, targeting our children. They cannot be allowed to exist in the marketplace. We cannot allow them to exist in the marketplace. And no, we won't have to boycott every business. I've heard this frequently in the past couple of days, people saying, well, if we're boycotting woke companies, where does it end? No. Don't misunderstand. We will not have to boycott every company. We will only have to boycott several companies, the most egregious examples, and we will have to ruin them in the marketplace. And when we do, then other companies will understand that quote unquote celebrating pride is a market death wish. That celebrating pride, promoting queer theory, will result in their business being ruined, in consumers rejecting everything about their business because of what they're trying to propagate on consumers. So we won't have to boycott everyone. We have to ruin Bud Light and Target and whoever else comes down the line doing something as egregious as they're doing, and then the market will balance. Then woke corporations will understand exactly what choice they're making, and they won't think they can just get away with it. They won't think it's just a little noise. They'll know that if they do this, they've ruined their business. And they won't be able to justify that to their board of directors. They won't be able to justify that to their investors. They won't be able to justify that to their bosses. They won't even be able to justify that with an ESG rating. So understand that what Target is doing, they're not backing down. They're making a strategic next move. And our response to that is to reject it. Our response to that is do not cave. Do not stop the boycott. Speed it up. Increase it. Pass it along. Encourage your family and friends to never spend another penny at Target, because they're trying to demonize you. They're accusing you of essentially being a terrorist. Actually, California senator, he's a California state senator, Scott Wiener, this is what he tweeted. He said, Target is removing LGBTQ pride products because of terrorist behavior like this. Yes, this is absolutely terrorism, and Target should be ashamed for caving in, just like Anheuser-Busch caved in. And people wonder why there's so much fear in our community. The video that he posted that he called absolutely terrorism is, you can see just a little snippet of it there on the screen. It's a guy who took down the pride rainbow from the top of the display and dropped it on the floor and gave it a kick. I'm not endorsing the behavior, but it's like the most vanilla thing that you've ever seen. And I actually laughed when I saw it, not because I endorse the behavior, again, but because to this, Senator Wiener says is absolutely terrorism. But where was he when Black Lives Matter was literally burning down Black-owned businesses? Oh, it was racial equity. This is fair. Property's just property. These people are just looking for their rights, standing up for themselves, rejecting the system. The LGBTQ lobby and politicians like Senator Wiener, who serve it, are frauds. They're hoaxes. They hate you. They want to stifle you and censor you and cancel you. And they're trying to use Target to do that. Don't let them. Absolutely reject it. We are winning this. We are about to establish our power in the marketplace if we don't give up. One other thing that I want to mention, the LA Dodgers, we talked about how they invited the quote unquote Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, this basically transgender group of satanic nuns, they call themselves. It's so sacrilegious, I hate to even use that term, but that's how they dress. They dress up as this twisted, warped version of nuns. And I don't even want to get into the graphic stuff. We did that yesterday. That's not what I want to talk about right now. I just want to take a step back and remind us that we are in a battle of good versus evil, right? It's never been clearer that this is not just left versus right. This is not just Democrat versus Republican, conservative versus liberal. We are in a battle of good versus evil. And sometimes it feels like the forces of evil are so prevalent and so evident, swirling around us constantly. And we wonder, where is God? Where's the force of good? Well, let me just remind you that, and I don't mean to sound preachy here, but this was something that just really touched my heart when I saw this. And I'm so happy that this story is gaining so much traction. If we could bring this up on the screen. First, the tweet. So as these sacrilegious so-called transgender nuns are parading around the LA Dodgers, this is a tweet that said, according to reports, the body of Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster, the founder of Benedictine Sisters of Mary, Queen of the Apostles, has been found incorrupt in Missouri 4 years after her death. So what is incorrupt? Incorrupt means that this sister died. She was buried in just a plain wooden coffin. It wasn't even sealed properly, apparently. And 4 years later, her body is not decomposed. She is, as you see on the screen, she's dead, but her body has not decomposed. She still has skin. She still has a face. Her hands, they covered in wax. That's why they look like that. But her body has been miraculously preserved. And it just, I saw this story, and I saw it a couple of times before it really hit home that, you know what? Maybe this is not a coincidence that this nun's body, this holy woman, was kept incorrupt by God for some purpose, maybe such a purpose as this, to counter these satanic so-called nuns in LA and across the country, these Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And it's just, we are in this battle of good versus evil. And we have to pick a side, and we have to stand with that side. And this is just a reminder, my friends, Jesus is here with us, fighting by our sides. And if this is not evidence of that, then I don't know what is. And if this doesn't encourage us, then I don't know what will. Guys, don't forget to drop me your email address at lizwheeler.com. Thank you so much for all of you who have signed up for my new email newsletter. I send stuff actually just like this. I sent this out on my email newsletter before we even talked about it on the show. So drop me your email address, lizwheeler.com, so I can always send you the best stuff as quickly as possible. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.
If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.